Hello everyone, it's BlueSteel42 here, and I'm back at it again with another update. And this one, if you guys might remember from my last update, this one is going to be about the scene I need help with for the next Thomas and Timothy episode that will also be featuring Duck, the Great Western Pannia Tank Engine. But before we start, I'd just like to say a quick thank you to my good friends Tyler the Tank Engine, Wardhouse TV, and Super Lego Matt 240, who have agreed they would help me with the opening scene. I just want to give a huge thank you to them because, again, I would have filmed this scene myself, but due to the move that's happening with my family and I'm afraid I was unable to do that, and I had to pack up all my model trains. So, in this update, I'm going to get into all the specifics, such as when an engine is approaching to the station, or what an engine will be saying, what's going to happen in this specific opening scene of the Great Western Runaway episode. And also, before we start, there's one thing I just want to make very, very clear. Just as a heads up, yes, James and Edward are both in this episode. They both are. They're just not in this scene. That's the only scene that doesn't have them. But I can assure you, both James and Edward are in this episode. Also, while I'm at it, I might as well make it very clear that while James and Edward are in this episode, I will also be posting the lines for every character who is present in this episode. The only reason why I haven't done it yet is because I want to make sure we get this scene done and work our way step by step. So yes, don't worry. As for the rest of the episode, I will be posting the lines for all the characters, especially Edward, because I actually just got someone else to play as the role of Edward for the Great Western Runaway. And then we'll have our film all together. Now with all that said, let's dive into the scene that I need help with, which is the Great Western Runaway opening scene. Another day of hard work is about to be complete. Thomas is seen pulling up at Elsbridge Station, where he finds Duck and Percy. Duck and Percy are pulling Henry's coaches because unfortunately, Henry's boiler is clogged. Duck and Percy had to step into standards and are pulling a double header together. Duck starts off the scene by saying to Thomas, "Thank you for bringing the passengers, Thomas. We'll take it from here and you can head back to have a rest." Thomas then replies back to Duck saying, "No problem, guys, and thanks, for I've been needing a nice long rest after a long day of pulling passengers." And this is where Super Lego Matt steps in as Percy, because Percy's first line is, "Same here, especially knowing that Henry's boiler is clogged. It's not easy shunting trucks and pulling passengers in one day." Duck then answers Percy with, "Welcome to the club, Percy." And just as Duck is finished saying that, Toby and Timothy pull up at the other side of Elsbridge. Thomas then greets them, saying, "Oh, hey guys, are you alright?" Timothy then answers Thomas with, "Oh, hello, Thomas. We're fine, just a bit tired. Toby has done nothing but deliver trucks of stone with Mavis at the quarry, and I myself have been shunting up at the China clay pits with those damn twins, Bill and Ben." Percy's next line is, "Let me guess, they whistled loud enough to scare you like there's no tomorrow." To which Timothy responds with, "Yeah, but don't worry, I took care of that." That's when Timothy hints a wink at Thomas, and Thomas gets the message, and he winks back to his brother. But that's when Duck puffs in and speaks with Toby and asks him, "But are you sure that's it for you, Toby? It's just that, to me, you look a little worried too." Toby then answers Duck by saying, "Sorry, it's just, well, have you got word of what happened this morning?" Thomas is confused and asks Toby with, "About what?" And this is when Toby explains to the engines about the two criminals and how they robbed a convenience store. He explains to them in his words, "Well, on the news, there was an announcement that there are two criminals that have robbed a convenience store earlier today. They stole money from the cash register as well as a couple of snacks. I'm just concerned because not only have the criminals fled the scene successfully, but the news anchor claimed that they both charged straight for the railway tracks near the store. And I'm worried if they were able to get away by jumping onto one of our trains without us engines knowing." Thomas, in a worried tone of voice, asks Toby if he is serious. Timothy then answers Thomas with, Trust me, Thomas. I know it's true. I got word from my driver and fireman. Percy's next line would then be, but Toby, do the cops know what they look like? They must have any evidence or identity of these crooks. That's when Toby answers Percy with, no, but the officers did hear from the store clerk that the robbers both sounded like young men. They both look and sound as if they were muscular or bigger than the store clerk was. So they have a lead on those details, but nothing more. And in this scene here, it's when all the engines become very silent, and they hint to each other worried looks of what is going to happen. They're very scared, and with worried expressions, they hint to each other that they're not sure of how to handle this situation. Well, except for Duck. To tell you the truth, Duck is actually very confident in the scene, and he boasts out after a couple seconds in silence with, "Oh, Toby, there's nothing to worry about." And this leaves all four of the engines in silence, like they are speechless this time. And that's when Percy asks at first, in a very loud tone of voice, "Wait, what?" To which Thomas adds on what Percy said with, "What do you mean there's nothing to worry about?" To which Timothy answers with, "Well, that's the first you hear of Duck's mouth." And that's when Duck and Toby argue about what's going to happen. Duck first speaks in his words, "Think about it, Toby. The store clerk, who witnessed it nonetheless, claimed how the criminals did not look muscular or big at all. They're probably just teenagers desperate for attention and chose to rob a convenience store to be noticed. I mean, honestly, teenagers these days have no common sense. And knowing how these are young men, I think it's safe to say that their minds are still developing and learning. There's like a 99 chance out of 100 that these hoodlums literally have no knowledge of what us engines are capable of." That's when Toby steps in and says, "But we don't know what they are capable of, Duck." And then Duck answers Toby with, "Trust me, Toby, it's safe to assume that these are just a couple of young brats who don't know any better. And based off the robbery you told me, that sounds like something only an idiotic teen would do." And that's when Percy's next line comes into place, as Percy interrupts the conversation and says, "I guess, but Duck, I still think you should be taking this seriously." Duck then answers Percy with, "Of course I am, Percy. I'm just stating a couple of facts is all." And as soon as Duck finishes that line, the guard at Elsbridge Station blows his whistle, hinting to Duck that it's time to go. And speaking of which, Duck's next line is, and no offense, but I think that's our cue to leave right about now. "Come on, Percy, let's take our passengers home without worrying about anything." And that's when Percy's last line comes into place, as Percy stutters in a worried tone of voice, I'm coming along, Duck. I'm coming along." And that's when Duck and Percy leave the station. And also, just as they leave, Percy, while moving along with Duck, looks back at Thomas with a very worried look on his face. He's hinting to Thomas that he's very scared of what is happening. He doesn't say it, he's just hinting to Thomas with his looks, to which Thomas feels the same way. And Thomas is very worried as well, as he also has a worried look on his face. And in the very last scene, Thomas talks to Toby, and he asks Toby a quick question. Thomas first says, "Toby, can I ask you something before you guys go back to Tidmouth?" Toby then answers with, "Of course, Thomas, what is it?" Thomas then asks Toby, "Well, it was when you mentioned how you were worried if the criminals had hopped on board one of us engines without us knowing. What makes you say that? And why would you think they would want to use us engines as a scapegoat?" Toby then answers Thomas with, "Well, Thomas, just think for a second. Knowing that our railway is quite big and rather popular for transportation, it's quite the obvious route where they would want to use a steam engine to quickly scamper from the police, especially knowing that us engines can take people not just anywhere on Sodor, but far from it." Thomas then asks Toby, "What do you mean?" Toby then answers with, "Well, what if they found an engine that was heading over to the bridge that leads to the mainland?" That's when Thomas gets very surprised and he realizes Toby is right. He even answers Toby with, I You're right, Toby. Especially because the officers would never be anywhere close to tracking them down. They could literally be anywhere. Toby then answers with, exactly, and that's why I'm worried. Because they'll be gone with one of our engines. Thomas is left worried and horrified. Toby doesn't mean to scare Thomas, but Thomas is just worried in general, in Toby's standards. Timothy just tells Thomas to go back to the sheds, and he'll meet up with Thomas very soon. Thomas agrees, says goodbye to both Toby and Timothy, and he leaves Elsbridge, pulling Annie and Clarabelle back to the sheds. And that is the scene I need help with, and it is also the scene that I did not get a chance to film. So if it's still alright with my good friends, Super Lego Matt 240, Tyler the Tank Engine, and even Wardhouse TV, if possible, may you guys please help me film this whole scene. I'm so sorry if it's a lot to drop on. I sincerely apologize, but I'm only asking for your help just because I had to pack up my Thomas trains just because of the move that my family and I are making. Thank you guys very much for watching, and I'd just like to quickly say thank you guys so much for 1,000 subscribers. I seriously cannot believe we hit this milestone. It really warms my heart to know that so many people out there actually enjoy my content. It really means the world to me. So guys, thank you so much for helping me reach this milestone. See you later, guys. Bye.